Mr. DeWitt.
What?
Dance with me.
Come, dance!
Hey guys, it's Kathleen here, and I just wanted to share with you my analysis of the ending of Burial at Sea, the newest Bioshock DLC. I mentioned that I was going to do an analysis of the ending, and I wanted to do this more in commentary form because this is a very difficult concept to explain. Okay, so let's jump right into the end and start analyzing it. So we are taken back to the scene where Booker is trying to get his daughter back that he sold to Comstock, and the tear is closing. And this is the scene that in Bioshock Infinite we witnessed Elizabeth losing her finger because the tear closed around her finger, and that's how we know that this child was, of course, Elizabeth. Unfortunately, in this scene, Anna does not lose her finger. She is decapitated. And Booker, we realize that we have not been playing as the Booker that we are familiar with. Instead, we've been playing as Comstock, as, of course, revealed through his reflection. He journeyed to Rapture to escape the guilt of having decapitated this young girl, because that's not something that you can just get over, watching a baby lose her head. I mean, that is just horrific, and I'm sure the Booker in this reality was very messed up as well. Who knows what happened to him? He may have ended up killing himself or something, or maybe he'll appear later in the second episode. But this traumatized Comstock so much that he asked the Lutece twins to help him escape Colombia, and they found Rapture for him. And so he went through the tear and went to Rapture to start a new life and to hopefully forget the atrocious things that he had done. So, what was the single most important thing that was revealed in this DLC, in my opinion? It was the realization that we have been playing as Comstock, but more importantly, that the Elizabeth that we've been interacting with is our Elizabeth. This is the Elizabeth from Bioshock Infinite, the one that we initially interacted with throughout the entire game. Okay, notice how in this scene she mentions two very important details: the skyhook and constants and variables. Those two details from her previous life in Colombia are supposed to express to us that this is our Elizabeth.
Skyhook? You mean the air grabber? Kids use them to ride around up on the pneumo lines.
Air grabber. Huh. Constants and variables.
In other words, I was completely wrong when I said that our Elizabeth ceased to exist after the Purge. And somehow, this Elizabeth continues to exist after the baptism in Bioshock Infinite. Now, the other Elizabeth ceased to exist because without Comstock, there is no Colombia, and without Colombia, there is no Elizabeth. When they faded out, and before Elizabeth disappeared, that was, of course, leaving it up to our interpretation as to whether or not Elizabeth ceased to exist. And now we know that Elizabeth does exist after the baptism, that somehow the baptism does not affect her existence. Let's look back at Bioshock Infinite and look at how she behaves after the siphon is destroyed. She mentions that she can see all the doors, and that she basically sees every door in existence and everything that is in existence, and she determines that the greatest way to rid every reality of Comstock is to murder Comstock in his crib. And Comstock's crib is his baptism. That's when Booker becomes Comstock. This did, as we see, destroy many of the Comstocks in existence in several different realities. Now, we know that because many of the Elizabeths disappeared because Comstock never exists in their realities, and therefore they never existed. So the solution did work for many Comstocks. It destroyed Comstocks in several different realities. The problem with this, though, as we see in this DLC, is that you can't kill every single Comstock because that rule doesn't necessarily apply. This Comstock escaped the purge by escaping his existence as Comstock, and he went back to being Booker. Regardless of how it happened, Comstock escaped the purge that happened in the end of Bioshock Infinite, or at least this Comstock that we play as in this DLC escaped it. And we now know what Elizabeth is doing as she's continuing to exist, that she has made it her personal goal to destroy every Comstock in existence. She's going around killing any Comstock that may have escaped the purge. And as we can tell, this has become very personal for her, and like, just look at the way that she watches Comstock as he's being murdered, and the way the blood splatters on her face, and just the way she behaves this entire DLC. She revels in the fact that he is going to be killed.
You killed those people.
Elizabeth.
You're a monster.
In other words, this Elizabeth is an entirely different type of animal. She could have killed Comstock at the beginning, but instead she has to take him through this whole journey where he has to discover his own guilt and suffer the guilt of what he's done before she kills him. In other words, she's become the type of animal that enjoys watching her prey suffer before it dies. And that is something that kind of concerns me. But there is something deeper going on right now. It is obvious that Elizabeth has been doing this for a while. If you don't believe me, look at the reoccurring themes throughout this entire DLC, and then ask yourself, what are they trying to do here? Okay, first of all, we see a lot of the same images, even some of the same character models from Bioshock Infinite. The combat is similar. We have skyhooks, we have vigors that are called plasmids, but they are still vigors. Also, there is the dance that is a little bit different, constants and variables, but the same exact scene that we saw in Bioshock Infinite, where Elizabeth offers to dance with Booker.
Where it started.
No one tells me where to go.
Booker. You've already been.
As she says, constants and variables. Why is this so important? Why are these similarities and differences important? Because it points to the same theme from Bioshock Infinite. That question, will the circle be unbroken?
I don't understand.
We don't need to. It'll happen all the same.
Why?
Because it does. Yes, it has. Yes, it will.
And what is this, of course, supposed to suggest? That Elizabeth is in a loop similar to the loop that Booker found himself in. Somehow Booker escaped the loop, but Elizabeth didn't, and she is finding herself having to constantly kill more and more Comstocks, and until she finds some way to break that cycle, she is going to be stuck in it. And it's going to be really interesting playing as Elizabeth. I think this is going to be her personal journey. We're going to figure out more of what she's been doing since the baptism and what this has done to her psychology. I personally think this has hardened her in a way that is personally affecting her for the worse. I mean, I love seeing her a tougher, more independent character, but the brutality that she has when killing Comstock is really gruesome and makes me think that she may begin to resemble, if she doesn't stop this cycle, she may begin to resemble the Elizabeth that we saw that was tearing up and destroying New York, unless she stops this cycle, because she may begin to enjoy killing a little bit too much, something that she shares with her father.
You've got a bit of the grifter in you.
For that you can thank my father. Wasn't the torture that broke me. Wasn't the indoctrination. It was time. Time rots everything, Booker.
Time rots everything. Does this mean that Elizabeth is a ticking time bomb? That her corruption is inevitable? Let me remind you that she burnt a little sister just to prove her point. Also, she intervened when Comstock was trying to pull Anna through the portal. If she hadn't gone back and intervened, would that little girl have died? Now, I would be lying if I said Elizabeth didn't have a moral conscience, that she had been completely corrupted. She shows clear empathy for the little sisters of Rapture. It bothers her that these girls are being sold as atom factories and sometimes sold into prostitution. It clearly bothers her. And that might be another reason why she's in Rapture, to save these little girls.
Customers do with the children, do they?
Sometimes. But those types lack the capital of people like Ryan and Suchong.
That's a blessing.
So she is clearly still that compassionate girl that we knew from Bioshock Infinite. But she's had to conceal that side of herself to accomplish the brutal tasks that have been set in front of her. She is a just character, and I have to be aware of that. But I have to also be aware of the fact that she is her father's daughter. And if she fails this task, well, we know what the future holds. So if you are confused about how Elizabeth is continuing to exist after the Purge, let me remind you of a fantastic dialogue between the Lutece twins.
But what is she? Alive or dead?
Why do you ask what?
When the delicious question is when.
The only difference between past and present
Is semantics.
lives, lived, will live.
Dies, died, will die.
If we could perceive time as it truly was,
What reason would grammar professors have to get out of bed?
like us all, Lady Comstock exists across time.
She's both alive and dead.
She perceives being both.
She finds this condition disagreeable.
Perception without comprehension.
It's a dangerous combination.
Now the Lutece twins perhaps open a tear to escape the afterlife. And like Elizabeth, they can see all of the doors and what's behind every door.
Perspective.
Why are you following us? Who sent you? Comstock? What do you want?
What do you see here, from this angle?
Dead.
Listen.
And that angle?
Alive.
They're omnipresent, able to exist in any reality and any time. And how is Elizabeth any different? She sees what's behind every door, and she knows where all of the doors are. She can open a tear in any reality.
I can see them through the doors. You, me, Columbia, Songbird.
So doesn't this make sense that she could escape her fate in the same way the Lutece twins did, simply by opening a tear? Now let me briefly talk about premonitions in this DLC. It is explained through the audio logs that Suchong has access to a tear. Through this tear, he sees Columbia.
Buildings that float. Is phenomena window to other space? Other time? On other side of a window, man in strange hat experimenting on Suchong's own creation. On plasmid. Man name of Fink. Outrage! Theft of intellectual property! But man name of Fink is no fool. Through addition of oxidizing agent, turns plasmid ingestible through stomach lining. Mr. Ryan very impressed with Suchong's initiative. Theft of intellectual property. Two-way street.
And this of course explains why there are vigors in Rapture. Now Cohen must also have access to a tear, because not only is he painting Songbird during his art exhibit, but he also knows that Elizabeth and Comstock are related.
Beauty and pain. They can be no more separated than birth and blood.
Pain
and beauty. To an artist, they are parent and child.
He also knows that Comstock is trying to escape the trauma of his past when he says that he sees pain in him.
I see suffering in you. I know how to shine a light on your pain.
Not only that, he knows that Comstock is going to die when he says that Elizabeth is going to take him where he doesn't want to go.
You are more than you claim to be, little songbird. Are you not? Watch this one, DeWitt. She'll take you where you don't want to go.
This explains that Cohen has a connection to Colombia. Now, let me remind you that Fink explains the songbird is a blueprint inspired by the Big Daddies.
These holes have shown me yet another wonder, though I've yet to see the application for it. They illuminate a merger of machine and man that is somehow the lesser, yet the greater of both parties. The process seems to be irreversible. Perhaps, though, Comstock will have some need of this kind of thing to keep watch in that tower he is building.
Now, there's been a rumor circulating the internet for a couple months that this scene in Bioshock, in the first Bioshock game, is actually the sounds that you hear in this scene are the sounds of the songbird dying. It sounds just like the scene of the songbird dying in Bioshock Infinite.
It's okay. It's all right. I'm here. Just let go.
Da 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 da. No, no.
Now, I personally think that's just a coincidence, a very incredible coincidence, but I really hope that Irrational Games takes advantage of this coincidence and that they explain that the songbird definitely has a connection not only to Rapture, but to Cohen. Now we know that this Rapture and Colombia are very much intertwined, and that Elizabeth has quite a few demons to tackle in this next episode. Also, I have to remind you that the first episode takes place a day before Rapture goes to hell. So I have no doubt that we're going to see why Rapture goes to hell in this Rapture, and possibly that Elizabeth has something to do with it. You can't just tamper with reality and expect there to be no result. For every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. So I could infer all I want about where this next episode is going, but until that episode comes out, all that I have are my theories. So after that episode comes out, I'm going to analyze my little ass off. But this is my opinion so far of where the story stands. So if you guys have any other opinions, let me know in the comment section, and with that, I should go.
Anna? Anna?
Anna? Is that you?
Hey guys, it's Kathleen here, and today I'm going to be doing my review of the newest DLC for Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea Episode 1. The reason why Bioshock is so emotionally compelling is because of that difference between that very sharp contrast between the violent atmosphere that you're experiencing and the innocence of the character that you are striving to protect.